Could the key to solving like these big global challenges be found in Denmark?
Okay, maybe that sounds a bit dramatic, but stick with me here. We're doing a deep dive into Denmark's foreign policy today, and you might be surprised to learn just how much impact this small nation has on the world stage.
Yeah, it's true. Denmark consistently punches above its weight in international affairs, and it all comes down to their approach. Multilateralism.
Multilateralism
Yeah,
sounds complicated.
not at all. In simple terms, it really just means tackling these global issues through collaboration and cooperation, working with other countries to find solutions. Think of it as like teamwork, but on like a global scale, and Denmark truly embodies this approach.
So it's not about like flexing their military muscle or anything like that.
No, not quite. You see, Denmark has a long history of neutrality, but they've chosen to exert their influence through partnership, dialogue, and a commitment to shared solutions.
Okay, so Denmark believes in this teamwork, but how does that like actually play out in the real world? The sources you sent paint a picture of a nation that is like deeply engaged in organizations like the UN.
Absolutely, and that's a key part of their strategy. The UN, for example, serves as this platform for countries to come together and address global issues. It's like the world's meeting room where everyone gets a seat at the table. Denmark leverages these platforms to champion their vision of a more peaceful and cooperative world.
And a big part of that vision seems to be tackling climate change head on. It comes up a lot in the material you sent me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where Denmark's commitment to multilateralism shines through. They understand that climate change knows no borders.
Right.
A heat wave in Europe affects crops in Asia. A hurricane in the Atlantic impacts coastal communities across the globe. Denmark gets that interconnectedness and acts accordingly.
So how does that translate into concrete action? Give me an example. What are they actually doing about it?
Well, one fascinating example is their leading role in the development of offshore wind energy.
Offshore wind energy. Now that sounds promising. Why is that so significant?
Well, Denmark recognized the potential of wind power early on, particularly harnessing the strong winds off their coasts. They invested heavily in research and development, creating this whole new industry around offshore wind farms. And here's where the multilateral magic kicks in. They didn't just keep these advancements to themselves. They shared their knowledge and technology with other countries, helping them develop their own offshore wind projects.
So they're almost acting as a kind of global mentor, helping to accelerate the adoption of renewable energy worldwide.
Precisely. They facilitated knowledge transfer, provided technical assistance, and even influenced international agreements to promote offshore wind energy. And the impact is substantial. Think about it, this one area of expertise, born from their commitment to both sustainability and global partnership, is now helping reduce reliance on fossil fuels around the world.
That's impressive. It really drives home the point that Denmark's influence goes far beyond its size. It's about leading by example, inspiring others to follow suit.
Exactly, and that influence extends to other areas of their foreign policy as well. Remember we talked about multilateralism as a core principle. It goes hand in hand with their dedication to human rights and democratic values.
Right. Those are other key themes that jumped out from the sources. But how does Denmark connect those dots? How do human rights and democracy tie back to this idea of global teamwork?
It's a great question. Denmark operates on the understanding that a more just and equitable world is a more peaceful and stable world.
Okay.
For them, promoting human rights and democracy isn't just this moral imperative, it's a strategic one.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through it. How do they put that into practice on the world stage?
Well, let's look at their involvement in the UN Human Rights Council. They have been vocal advocates for strengthening international mechanisms to protect human rights globally.
The UN Human Rights Council. That's a pretty big deal. They're right there on the front lines advocating for change.
Exactly, and they don't just talk the talk. They've consistently pushed for resolutions condemning human rights abuses, even when it meant standing up to powerful nations.
Wow.
They understand that upholding human rights everywhere is in everyone's best interest. It contributes to a more stable and secure world for everyone.
So it's not just about being like nice or doing the right thing. It's a strategic calculation. It's based on this understanding that these issues are all interconnected.
Precisely. And here's a compelling example. Denmark has been a leading voice in promoting gender equality globally. They see it as not only a matter of basic human rights, but also as a key driver of economic development and social progress.
That makes sense. When women are empowered to reach their full potential, everyone benefits. But how does Denmark go about championing this on an international level?
One way is through development aid. They prioritize programs that empower women and girls, focusing on education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. They've also been very strong advocates for women's political participation, both within international organizations and in developing countries.
It's really amazing how much thought and strategy goes into their approach. They're like these chess masters of international diplomacy, always kind of thinking several steps ahead, seeing these connections that others might miss.
That's a great way to put it. Denmark understands that in our increasingly interconnected world, collaboration isn't just a choice, it's a necessity. They've taken their small size and turned it into a strength, leveraging their expertise, their values, and this commitment to partnership to make a real difference on the world stage.
It's inspiring, really. It makes you realize that even a nation with limited resources can still have a significant impact when they have a clear vision and the will to work with others to achieve it.
Absolutely. Denmark reminds us that every nation, regardless of its size or power, has a role to play in shaping a better future. It's about identifying your strengths, standing up for your values, and finding these creative ways to work together to address these challenges that we all face.
It's a powerful message, and one that I think we can all learn from. So the next time you think about global problem solving, don't underestimate the impact of a nation that values collaboration, dialogue, and a commitment to building a more just and sustainable world. Who knew we could glean so much wisdom from the land of Hidge and Legos?
Indeed. It seems Denmark has a lot more to offer the world than just delicious pastries.